Something is shifting, and if you've been watching the Iraqi Dinar for any length of time, you can feel it. The signals coming out of Baghdad right now are unlike anything we've seen in recent months, and today we're going to break down exactly what's happening, what it means, and what every serious IQD holder needs to understand before another week passes. Stay with me until the end, because the final point in today's analysis may be the most important thing you hear this month. What if today's Iraqi Dinar update changes everything investors have been waiting for? That's not a question I ask lightly. I've been analyzing this currency for years, and there are moments, rare moments, when multiple developments converge at the same time in a way that demands attention. We're in one of those moments right now. So let's slow down, look at the full picture, and separate what we know from what we're still watching. Let's start with the Central Bank of Iraq, the CBI, because everything in this story begins there. Over the past few weeks, the CBI has continued its policy of managing the official exchange rate while simultaneously cracking down on unauthorized dollar transactions in the parallel market. Now, why does this matter? Because the gap between the official rate and the black market rate has been a persistent problem that international institutions, including the International Monetary Fund, have flagged as a barrier to Iraq's financial credibility. When that gap narrows, it signals something important: monetary discipline. And monetary discipline is one of the foundational conditions that analysts look for before any serious discussion of rate adjustment can even begin. This isn't speculation. This is how currency stabilization works historically in emerging economies. But that's only part of the story. Iraq's oil revenues have been playing a quietly powerful role in this picture. Iraq remains one of the top oil-producing nations in OPEC, and with global energy markets continuing to experience price volatility, Iraq's budget calculations are under constant pressure. Here's what many investors are overlooking. Iraq's 2024 and 2025 federal budgets were structured around an oil price assumption. When oil prices exceed that assumption, Iraq generates a surplus. When those surpluses accumulate in the reserves of the CBI, the bank's capacity to support a stronger DNR grows. This is not a guarantee, but it is a financial foundation, and foundations matter when you're building toward currency reform. Now let's talk about Iraq's economic reform agenda, because this is where things get genuinely interesting. The Iraqi government has been pushing forward with what they call structural reforms, reducing dependence on oil, expanding the banking system, integrating with international payment systems, and working toward full compliance with anti-money laundering standards set by global financial bodies. Iraq was removed from the Financial Action Task Force's gray list, which was a significant milestone. Being on that list restricted Iraq's ability to conduct normal international banking. Being off, it opens doors, and open doors in the world of sovereign finance have consequences for currency credibility. Compare this to where Iraq stood 5 or 6 years ago. It was virtually locked out of the global financial system in meaningful ways. The progress, while slow, is measurable. This detail may change how investors view today's news. There's a conversation happening at the governmental level in Iraq that rarely gets covered in Western financial media. The Shami administration has been signaling through policy action, not just rhetoric, that Iraq's long-term vision involves a more internationally integrated economy. They've been pushing to increase non-oil revenues, modernize the tax collection system, and attract foreign direct investment. None of these things happen in a vacuum. When a government is serious about economic modernization, currency policy is always part of that conversation eventually. Again, not a promise, not a guarantee, but a direction, and direction matters to long-term investors. The next update could be even more important, so make sure you stay with us. Let's address the exchange rate directly, because this is what most IQD holders are watching most closely. The official rate has remained in a managed range. The CBI has been clear that stability is the immediate priority. Now, some in the IQD community interpret stability as stagnation. Experienced analysts interpret it differently. Currency stability is a prerequisite, not a ceiling.
Before any economy can responsibly adjust its exchange rate upward, it must demonstrate that it can hold a rate steady, that it has the reserves, the policy discipline, and the institutional credibility to manage the transition. Iraq has been building that case piece by piece. Is the rate going to move tomorrow? That's not something any honest analyst will tell you with certainty. But is the infrastructure for a rate adjustment being constructed? The evidence suggests yes. Here's what many investors are overlooking: the role of Iraq's banking sector modernization. The CBI has been pushing Iraqi banks to modernize their systems, adopt electronic payment infrastructure, and connect to international correspondent banking networks. This might sound like a technical footnote, but it's actually critical. You cannot operate a currency at a significantly higher valuation if your banking system cannot process international transactions efficiently and transparently. The investment in banking infrastructure is, in a very real sense, an investment in the currency's future capacity. This is exactly the kind of quiet structural progress that precedes meaningful monetary policy changes in economies that have successfully reformed their currencies in the past. But that's only part of the story. Let's talk about the global financial environment, because it does not exist in isolation from Iraq. The US dollar's position as the world's reserve currency continues to face long-term questions, particularly as countries in the Middle East and Asia explore alternative settlement mechanisms for trade. Iraq sits at an interesting intersection here. It has deep ties to both the US dollar system and to regional economies that are exploring alternatives. The CBI's management of dollar liquidity through its currency auction system is directly connected to these global dynamics. As Iraq's trade relationships evolve and its financial systems mature, the structural pressure on its currency policy will evolve as well. This is a slow-moving story, but slow-moving stories in finance can produce dramatic outcomes over time. Now, let's be honest about what we don't know. No one, not Frank26, not any analyst, not even any insider, can give you a date. Anyone who tells you they have a confirmed RV date is not giving you analysis, they're giving you a story. What serious analysis can do is identify conditions, measure progress, and help you understand where things stand so you can make informed decisions. And where things stand right now is this: Iraq is further along the path of monetary and economic reform than it has been at almost any previous point in the modern era. The institutions, the policies, and the financial fundamentals are showing more alignment than they have in years. That doesn't mean a revaluation is imminent. It means the conditions that would make a revaluation possible are more developed than before. For investors who have held this position with patience and realistic expectations, that is meaningful. For anyone considering the IQD for the first time, the message is the same. Understand the risks, understand the timeline uncertainty, and never invest money you cannot afford to hold for an extended period. Markets involve uncertainty. That is not a disclaimer. It is the most honest thing any analyst can tell you. What you can control is how informed you are, how patiently you approach this, and how clearly you understand what you're watching for. That's exactly why this channel exists. If today's analysis gave you clarity, if it helped you see the bigger picture with more confidence, then do one thing right now. Hit that like button because it tells us this kind of in-depth, honest analysis is what you want more of. Subscribe if you haven't already and turn on notifications so that when the next major development hits, you are not the last to know. Share this video with anyone in the IQD community who deserves real analysis over empty hype. We'll see you in the next one.